Okay, Wayne, this is your video review for your Fat M Scout car, the Soviet Scout vehicle. Um, Good work. I think you've captured the shape really well. I'm actually genuinely impressed. I'd like to say that. Um, it's You seem to have done a very good job of capturing the shape, and especially since I've heard you've done it in mesh, I'm impressed with the result you've got. It's not perfect, however. I'm going to go through what you can work on. But what it does show to me is it does show an incredible amount of potential that you have. I think if you listen to my maybe criticisms and take some of my feedback, we'll be getting some fantastic models out of you because you've really shown potential and ability with being able to take your reference material and convert it into something. And you convert it into something reasonably accurately. It's just the way you've gone about it could probably be improved and made more efficient. There are a few areas that I'm going to go into. One is hopefully I'm going to convert you from using mesh and using it to poly. I'm going to try and do this in under 15 minutes. Um, I'm going to tell you about use of your vertexes and maybe being a bit more efficient with your polys. I'm also going to tell you about your your polygon resolution, I think is the way to put it, and where you put all your detail. But in terms of your actual structure, or in terms of your actual shape, and your ability to make something that looks like the reference material, you've done a very good job and you should be very proud of that. So I'll just jump straight in and I'll tell you what I always tell Flick, and that is that vertexes should define shape. So if we delete that unwrap for a second so I can grab some polys or some verts. So you've got these verts on the hood here. And as I say, if we use the phrase vertexes define shape, if your hood was like this, like if the model in real life or the reference in real life was this shape, then those vertexes would be valid because they'd be helping you define the shape of that hood. However, they're not. And what they do is they kind of make, and this is a kind of a very first year kind of newbie mistake, is you kind of see this nice pattern of squares and you go, oh, that's a nice pattern, and you leave it there. Well, you don't need them. They're just contributing to the flatness. Okay, so ideally you want to get rid of them. We can probably get rid of all of these. Now that's the most obvious example. When it comes down to it, there's quite a few along the model. I think that's more of not a result of you being bad, but more of a result of using old-fashioned methods like mesh extrusion, like we did with the plane in first year. I can actually see pretty much what you've done is you've started around here somewhere and you've probably worked your way along, extruding bit by bit and then adjusting. I'm going to show you how to not do that with poly. With mesh, mesh is just kind of old-fashioned and there's no real advantage to using it. It's like someone writing on a grain of rice, and you're like, well, that's all very nice and it's impressive, you being able to write your name on a grain of rice, but it's not particularly efficient, and you want efficient models. So that's an obvious example, getting rid of those. Don't be too afraid of triangles. Again, this is just me being quick, so this isn't me trying to show you me being accurate, but get rid of all of those and just work your way in. So that triangle might actually fit there, and then you could have that quad there. Again, there's a few on the back. You don't need all these squares really. You could probably weld this one down into there. These middle ones could probably be welded together. Get rid of those. Just go around and do some knitting and think to yourself, vertexes define shape. Is this defining a shape? Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was that try to save your polys, as many polys as you can. Try and be an artist, so don't be afraid of giving them to things. Like I really like your front bumper; it gives a good silhouette. But under your car, you're not going to see any of these polys, so you can actually just get rid of them. Another first year kind of newbie mistake is worrying about things being watertight. Like if I click on this here, That's actually quite impressive. Impressive in the grain of rice way. That's impressive but not practical. I'm going to show you how to use separate elements in a second. But yeah, you want to avoid stuff like that because it makes your modeling very inefficient because you have to stitch everything together and you waste a lot of polys actually stitching than you would do just making a separate element. I mean, the computer likes models to be all stitched together because then it doesn't do call functions to load the new models in. But if you're wasting loads of polys to stitch things together, it's not worth it. It's not efficient. So you could get rid of most of these because they're not going to be seen. Um, I know it's you kind of think when you're making it, you're like, well, that means that the car's kind of, it's hollow. It makes you feel like, oh, the car's hollow. That doesn't feel right. But you kind of get used to it, and you're like, no, that's fine. I really like the shape of your fenders. If I haven't mentioned already, I probably have. Um, I actually really like the shape of pretty much everything you've done. A few people have said they didn't like the hinges, but I like them because they kind of stand out. And remember that your vehicle is going to be seen at these kind of angles because it's an RTS. So the silhouette is incredibly important, and I think you've really nailed that. What I would say though is these hinges have a little bit too much detail. You don't need, if you were going to do this, you don't need to stitch them in. You could just have box, 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 and then you've saved loads of polys just doing that. Again, with these doors, I appreciate that you've listened to me. A few of the other modelers actually struggle with this, making their doors separate. But you've done a good job there. However, are these insides really necessary? Are these grooves really necessary in here? You could do that with a texture, like even these bits, like this indent, it's probably not going to be seen, and it could be done with like a black line on the texture. It's going to be so small. Now that brings me on to my next bit, your resolution of certain elements, and your what's the word? Giving your polys out to your model. You have to make sure that they're kind of even, otherwise you end up with areas that look very, very kind of jaggy, like maybe your turret, I suppose, and areas that have way too many polys and are just kind of inefficient. Like there's just too many polys on there. I appreciate you're trying to make it nice and smooth, but there's just too many. And if we zoom out, there's a good way you can see. Just look where all the clusters are, and you can kind of go, oh yeah, there's too many there. Another example would be you've made a hole for this machine gun. You just don't need one, you're not going to see it. So get rid of that, and you can weld that all up. Don't need a hole in the end of the machine gun either. You can use it with that texture. Just think, good game modelers will look at something and go, okay, what do I need to spend my polys on to define the shape? And what do I need to, what can I get away with the texture? And a lot of people will actually say that textures are far more critical and will really make the model than a good model. Right, the front is a bit messy and really needs to be fixed. 1 second. Sorry about that, just shut that noise out. Right, that's a bit of a mess, it needs to be fixed. I appreciate that you've made the hood for me, but that's also a bit messy. I imagine that's probably from mesh. Now mesh has some pretty crappy welding and cutting tools. Now the good thing about poly is there's some really nice ones, so that shouldn't be a problem. Also, I think what you've done is you've tried to make it from the shape, from the actual model, where you could have just made that as a separate object, as a separate element from the get-go. Too many, again, too many in here. That just needs to be even one, maybe not even one at all. Maybe just get rid of everything on that plane. Oh, a quick tip: if you're selecting something, you can select by angle, tick that box, and then you can select things completely flat like that, and we can get rid of that because they're probably not going to see in it. Now remember, when this vehicle gets damaged and this hood flaps around, you're probably going to want to see an engine in there. So if you could model me an engine, that would be awesome. Interior is good, I like that. It's nice and simple, that's good. These windows on the front are a bit too complex as well, so actually let me just kind of tug them out a bit. Like if we see too complicated. So machine gun top there, the window flaps, the door arches, maybe the inside of the wheels. You don't need that many polys there. You can probably just weld those out. So just think about, have a look and look at it and go, what do I really need? Let me think what else. So we've gone over vertices defining shape. We need to do some knitting, just kind of tie some things up. Check out your resolution, make sure everything is got a reason for it being there. Do some tidying on your hood, and on your grills. I like your fenders. I like these. I like the general shape. That's good. I'm going to show you some poly tricks now.